Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Parent Playing Video Games podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at Donkey Kong Country. Yep, a classic Donkey Kong game, and introducing many different characters in the Donkey Kong series, and I think really skyrocketing Donkey Kong, is a solid character in the Nintendo universe. We're going to be going through, as always, the gameplay, the music, the time commitment, and our kiddable. We'll be concluding it with a rating, which, spoiler alert, it's pretty good. It's definitely probably one of my favorite Donkey Kong games. Never really played too much of the original, but more on the Donkey Kong Country side of things. So the music at the beginning there you heard was the main theme. Always thought it was really cool. If you actually watch a YouTube video of the theme, or if you actually watch the intro, it actually shows one of the characters, Cranky Kong, which we'll talk about later. He's actually playing I think it's a phonograph, and he's cranking it, and he's playing the more 8-bitty sound music. And then Donkey Kong himself jumps out from the sky and lands next to him and blows him away. He's got a big boom box on, he's all cool, and that's when the song kicks into sort of high gear and gets really good. So I'm going to be starting off with, of course, what I've been playing. On the previous episode, I had been talking that I'd started Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance. I was actually thinking about doing that one as episode 4, but I was chatting with a few people and kind of agreed that, maybe we'll do that one a little bit later, give it a little bit of a break, because I don't want to have 3 Castlevania episodes in a row. That's 6 weeks of Castlevania, kind of so to speak. So yeah, I finished that one. It was okay. Again, I had a hard time. The controls on it were all floaty and weird, and it was fine. It didn't feel too challenging. As I said, I'm probably going to do an episode on it. We'll get into more detail then, but I pretty much 100% of the game. I'm gonna, let's call it 99.5% of the game all on my own, which, as awesome as that is, it really wasn't that much of a challenge to do so. So yeah, as I said, we'll get into it. It was fine. It was good. It's okay. And then I pretty much jumped straight into Aria of Sorrow, that third Castlevania Advance game. And that one immediately I felt much happier with it. It was similar to... It was almost kind of a mix between Circle of the Moon and Symphony of the Night controls. It was kind of... It was tight, but also not stiff. I don't know if that makes sense. Castlevania Circle of the Moon was fairly stiff, where Symphony of the Night is... they're very good controls. So this was, more on that Symphony of the Night sort of thing, and really enjoying that game. And I don't even know where I'm about in that one, but I'm enjoying it. And then it was funny, actually. I think I got an email, or I was poking around on the PlayStation, something like that, and I saw that Diablo 2 Resurrected was on sale, and I've been interested in this game pretty much since it came out, and I think that was back in 2001, or 2 years ago now, and I was interested in the game, but I never really, pulled the trigger, so to speak, on it and purchased it. I decided to, and then I actually realized for $4 more, it was not just Diablo 2 Resurrected, but it was that as well as all of Diablo 3, and I think maybe some DLC, I'm not too sure. And again, Diablo 3 is a game that I always liked playing on my PC, and I actually had it on my Xbox One, I think is what it is, which is not hooked up. And I really enjoyed playing that on console, and I just never really bought it again. Time and other games come in. So I picked that up and started playing it, and I'm going through that. I'll be honest, I'm following a little leveling guide. It's been a long time since I played Diablo 2, and I kind of just want to get it right, so to speak. I am playing it at Amazon with the javelins. I think it comes to a Javazon. So that's, again, that's classic. That's fun. That's something that I'm going to pick up and play just when I have some time. I just want to play something, cozy and familiar and kind of grindy, put on some music, put on a podcast, something like that. And then also I started I started playing Hogwarts Legacy again. I'd played that quite some time ago, but my wife got really, really interested into it, so I decided to... She was kind of playing it, and I let her play, and she continued on, so we picked it up, and she was helping me a little with it last night, and it had been a while, but that game is really quite good. I mean, the graphics are insane. I'm not a huge graphics guy, but man, it really immerses you in the environment, so... yeah, I'm probably looking to play that some more this week. That'll be a lot of fun. And then this is something I never would have thought that I would ever talk about in general or on the podcast or anything like that. But I downloaded this game on my iPhone, called Puzzle Page. And I mean, if you're into kind of classic newspaper or book puzzles like Sudoku, crosswords, things like that, word searches, this is honestly fantastic. I know that sounds really weird, but it is. It's a lot of fun to play. There's no kind of forced ads. Like, when you beat a level, you have to watch an ad or two. Those are annoying, right? This one, there is a currency in it. I think I've played upwards of 30 puzzles, and I've not had to buy any currency. And I looked at my battery life usage this morning, and I think I played it like 3 hours last night. I was just on the couch while we were watching TV playing, and it was tons of fun. My wife was helping me with some crosswords. I actually put it on the screen at work today at lunch, and I got a bunch of the guys helping me. It was a fun time. So, yeah, as I said, right now, really good. I don't know, if and when I'll hit a paywall. I'm sure at some point I will, but I mean, even then I looked at it, it wasn't overly expensive to continue playing, but we'll see how things go. So yeah, I guess I've been playing quite a lot of stuff, kind of bouncing around things. Yeah, so I guess I feel like this week I'd like to probably continue with Harry Potter, do a little bit more on that, and then maybe some Diablo 2. Castlevania Aria of Sora, I think that one's probably gonna go on the back burner for a little bit. If I take my Switch into work, I'll probably play it there, because Switch, easy, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is what I have been playing. I guess played a little bit more than I had thought of. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun playing all the different games, especially Diablo 2. Some really good memories with that. Let's talk about our main event, Donkey Kong Country. It was released way back in 1994, November of 1994 in North America. And I believe around the same time or on the same time in Japan. It was pretty consistent, unusual for back then for sure. So this is really my first experience with Donkey Kong, not just in the country, but just in general. I never played Donkey Kong, the arcade game. I was never really a big arcade gamer. I mean, I'd rather just play at home rather than popping quarters into the arcade machines and whatnot. But yeah, I never really got into the original Donkey Kong. And then from my memory and my knowledge, I don't believe he was really shown again. Like, Donkey Kong was not really brought around again until this game. So yeah, it was, I guess, the first, solo game for Donkey Kong. As in the Donkey Kong arcade game, you don't play Donkey Kong, of course. You play Mario, and you want to rescue Paulina from the big angry ape. But yeah, the cool thing with this as well that I actually looked up, and I had to double check. I couldn't remember how it was, but the graphics in the game are quite unique in that the worlds are 2D, but all the sprites, your characters and the enemies, they're all actually 3D polygon sprites, which is crazy to think of course, because it's a Super Nintendo game. Having 3D sprites in the game is super weird, especially when you look at a game like Star Fox, which was 3D. You're flying your ship from behind, but the polygon count was low to say the least, and the frame rate, of course, now especially people are quite obsessed with frame rate. I'll be honest, I do like a game running at that 60 FPS. If it dips down, it is a bummer, but yeah, when you look at Star Fox, you're looking at brutally slow frames. Donkey Kong Country was buttery smooth. Again, the whole thing wasn't in 3D, but those pre-rendered backgrounds are beautiful, especially in the first area. It's a beautiful lush forest. It looks there's a lot of depth to it, kind of thing. They did a really, really good job at kind of, creating those images. So the story of Donkey Kong Country is, honestly, it's, I think, a better story than even Mario. I mean, Mario, of course, is not the most amazing story, but I think it's a really funny story. There is a character named King K. Rool. I believe is a crocodile. Yes, a crocodile, not an alligator, I'm pretty sure. And he steals Donkey's banana hoard. That's it. Just his giant stash of bananas. It's a ridiculous story, but I mean, it gives really good motive. Donkey's upset. He wants to get his bananas back. So he and his little brother Diddy, they team up to go all the way through to fight King K. Rool to get his bananas back. So one cool thing that I found as well is in the first level, when you come out, you kind of, barrel out of Donkey's house, and he kind of lives up somewhat high at the treetop level. And there's little kind of almost stairs that you can jump up to get back in if you want. And you actually get an extra life in there. But when you do that and you go down, you can go under the house, and it's a cave. And that's where his banana hoard is. I think it says Donkey's banana hoard. And it's funny because when you go in there and it's not there, he gets so mad, he pounds the ground, some sad music plays, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, he's upset, he wants his bananas. It's as simple as that. I don't know why King K. Rool stole the bananas, but, here we are kind of thing. So yeah, as I said, Donkey, bashes out of his house, super mad, wants to get his bananas back. Now this game, as I said, that's the extent of the story kind of thing. The way the game plays is, again, classic 2D side-scroller, left, right, up, down, all that fun stuff. So you, again, initially start off as Donkey, but very, very quickly into that first level, you'll see a barrel. And barrels are, used all sorts of in the game. So Donkey can throw barrels, he can bash them open, they can be save points. And then the one that I'm talking about now is a DK barrel. And so what that does is, if you're just Donkey, you don't have Diddy with you, and you hit the barrel, it will actually crack open and Diddy comes out of it. And you can actually hear him in there. He goes boom, 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 hey, help, help, kind of thing. He doesn't say help, but he bangs on the side of it and makes some noise. Hit it, Diddy comes out, and then Diddy follows behind you. So this is where the game gets, it's kind of like, it's like a 2-hit system, like lives, let's call it, or energy, health, something like that. So you're playing Donkey, you're running along, and you get hit by one of the bad characters, and then what happens is, Donkey kind of jumps and flies away, and now all of a sudden you're taking control of Diddy. Now you're Diddy, you go on. If you get hit again, then Diddy goes off, and now you've lost a life. You kind of have to go back to the beginning of the level or at the save point. Depends on if you hit that or not. So, yeah, I mean, if you fall down a hole or into like a lava or something like that, it's just a life gone. Like, it doesn't matter if you have both Diddy and Donkey. It's just, that's how it is. So when you're controlling Donkey and you have Diddy, I believe it's the select button on the controller. When you do that, he kind of puts his hands behind him, and Diddy kind of tags in, kind of like wrestling, right? So he puts his hands behind Diddy's, like, bam, yeah, let's go. And then the characters flip. So now Diddy's at the front and Donkey's trailing. And whoever's at the front is the only character you control. They control similar, but also quite different. They have their own characteristics. So for an example, when you're playing as Donkey, he's big, he's strong, he's a little slow at going, but he can take out all enemies. He's real strong. They both can roll. Donkey will do kind of a tumble, and Diddy actually does a cartwheel. It's kind of funny, but anyway, yeah, so Donkey will roll. He can jump. I feel like their jump is probably the same, but personally I always like Diddy. He's more agile, he's quicker. I feel like his jump is better, but it probably isn't. It's probably just the same. But the downside is, of course, that he is a little bit weaker, so some enemies he actually might not be able to kill at all. Some he might have to roll into versus jump on, which, yes, you can jump on enemies like in Mario, or you can roll into them with that roll or cartwheel to take them out as well. And again, you can swap back and forth kind of as much as you want. You can't do it like in the middle of something, like in the middle of a roll, or if you're in a jump. But if you're just standing there, yeah, you can swap out. Donkey as well, he can kind of pound on the ground with his hands, and you can reveal secret items, maybe an extra life, some bananas, something like that. Bananas are similar to coins in Mario. You get 100 bananas, you get an extra life. That's all it is. It just counts up and up and up, sort of thing. Yeah, so obviously those are your two playable characters. And then one thing I want to quickly catch on or talk about before we go into the supporting characters is you can kind of play the game in 3 ways. So single player, of course, is very straightforward. Your single player, you control both, as not simultaneously, but one after another. You can play as a 2-player team. And what that one does is that, like, player 1 controls Donkey, player 2 controls Diddy. It's still not at the same time, so you're not running around on the same screen like, you know, Battletoads or Turtles or something like that, one of those beat 'em ups. But what happens is, let's say I'm playing Donkey, my wife's playing Diddy, I'm playing, and then I get hit, and then she's playing now. She's playing as Diddy. Or I'm playing, I'm like, you know what? I want her to play. Let's do the old, you know, backhand slap, get her in, and then she can play while I go get a drink or I just sit there, or whatever it may be. So that's the 2-player team. Then the opposite is 2-player contest. So this one is really interesting. I've never actually played it, but pretty much what it is that you have 2 separate, kind of almost like 2 separate games going on at the same time, sort of. So what happens is you have player 1 controlling Red Donkey and Red Diddy, and then I think player 2 controls yellow or purple. I looked it up, but I can't remember what it was, but they're controlling another one. And I think what happens is, let's say player 1 continues on, and let's say on the 5th level they die. It then flips over to player 2. It's similar to Super Mario World in that it flips over to the other player when the first player dies. They go on, they die, goes back to the other one. So it's just that kind of back and forth multiplayer. And I don't know, it may be a timing thing, or just maybe whoever gets to the end of the game first is who wins. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, if you want to have a little bit of, you know, competitive nature between you and someone else, that's definitely one way to do it. The one quick thing, the 2-player team, I think is a really cool feature for a kid, because what can happen is I can play as Donkey, my son can play as Diddy, he's playing along, he's getting to a hard part, he says, you know, Dad, can you take over? Instead of handing me the controller, he just hits select and I just continue playing. And it's almost like, even though I'm the one that's now in control fully, it's nice because he hasn't almost given up control because he's still holding onto the controller. I don't know, maybe that's a mental thing in my head. I think that would be cool, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear people's opinions on that one. I think that would be a really cool play or way to play with someone who could use support but doesn't necessarily want to, you know, hand over support, if that makes sense. Because as I said, there are some supporting characters. As I said, Donkey and Diddy are the ones that you can actually play, but you got 3 other Kongs, and they're all the same family, right? So you got 3 other Kongs that are involved. So there's Candy Kong. She is your save points. So in each level, each world, I should say, several levels into the world, you can meet up with Candy Kong, and she's just your save point. You can go back to her at some point if you want to save. Like, let's say if you get to the boss, you want to go back, save, just, you know, in case. Because if you go after the save point and go through, let's say, 3 or 4 more levels, you get to the boss and you die, you have to do those 3 or 4 levels again. But if you get right up to the boss, go back, save, and then you can do the boss. I wouldn't say the bosses are super challenging. They're very, very pattern based. So, I mean, it's not a problem. It's not a bad idea to save. Let's put it that way, right? So that's Candy. Cranky Kong. Now, Cranky Kong is really cool. He is the original Donkey Kong from the arcade. He's grown up. He's lost some weight because he's a pretty skinny old man now, and he's old. He's cranky. He's got a cane. He's got a long gray beard. He's got glasses, and he sits in front of his cabin in a rocking chair. And so you go up to him, and I mean, there's no voice acting, of course, in this, but you go up to him, and he starts telling you advice. Right? Because he's an old guy. He's like, you know, he's got wisdom. So it's a really good idea to listen to his advice. He goes up there and he's like rocking back and forth. Then he like every now and then bonks Donkey and Diddy on the head with his cane. He's like, oh, you know, back in my day, blah, blah, blah. It's got some really funny lines as well. So even though there's no real... I mean, if it's your first time playing him, please go and talk to Cranky, because you'll, one, have a great time listening to what he says, but also I think it would also help you in some way, and you're not having to resort to looking things up on a wiki. I like that wikis exist, but I love it when a game is kind of a self-contained game. It kind of gives you all the information you need without having to just look it up. So, yeah, that's, I think, a really fun addition to the game. And then the last Kong that's supporting character is Funky Kong. And he is a cool dude. He's got a surfboard. You can use him to fly to the other worlds. So once you unlock him in the first world, you can't really go anywhere because you only have the one world. Because you have to beat the boss to get to the next worlds, so on and so forth. So let's say you beat boss 3. right? You're now in World 4, and you get to where Funky is, but you're like, man, I have no lives. I'm going to go back to some earlier levels that are easier, maybe get bananas, maybe find those extra lives that are in certain places, and you can play through those levels again and again and again, and then get back in the plane, go back to World 4, and continue on. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice, I think, mainly to do that, or if you want to just practice other levels, you could do that too. But definitely using them to grind up grind up lives, not levels, is a good idea. So, other than those supporting characters, we have what's called the good guys. And it's funny because there's the good guys and then the bad guys, which are all your enemies. I'm not going to go through all the enemies, obviously there's way too many. But the good guys are kind of supporting almost like power-ups, let's call it, right? Because they don't have like the mushroom and fire flower like you do on Mario, but these guys help you do things get a little bit more powerful. So we have Rambi, who is the rhino. You jump on him, you go faster, he can bash through walls to get into secret areas. He's really nice in that he can actually just run through most enemies, and you just kind of hits them out of the sky or off the platform with his horn. I don't think in any of the levels, I mean, they're not in all the levels, they're only in certain ones. I don't think in any of the levels that he's in, he can't defeat an enemy. I don't think so. But I could be remembering that wrong. Next we have On Guard, who is a swordfish, so that's only in the water levels. Hopefully that's obvious. The swimming in these games it's okay. The obviously, swimming in games is never a fun time. This one is not bad. On Guard makes it so much easier because you just move up, down, left, right. It just works. I mean, there's a little bit of kind of like not lag, but like, inertia, as you're in water. And then you can press a button and he can kind of shoot forward. And he like charges, and he's a swordfish. I'm pretty sure it's a swordfish. He looks like one. So he has a big, long, pointy nose. That's his sword. Hits an enemy, takes him out. So it makes them definitely easier. However, one thing that the point on his sword, obviously it's a nose/sword thing. It's very small because it's pointy. Sometimes you're a little bit too low or too high, and then you go, and then you just hit the enemy, and then you lose in guard. And actually, that's something as well. With these, the good guys, is that they kind of give you a third life or third level of health. So if, let's say, you get hit when you're on guard, you lose in guard, you might be able to get him back. He kind of floats around, so you can probably get him back, but you'll lose in guard, and then you hit with Donkey, and then you hit with Diddy, and then the life is gone. So it gives you a little bit of extra kind of protection. Winky is a frog. Not too sure why he's called Winky. I guess frogs blink in a weird way, or they kind of blink maybe. I don't know. So he is, to be honest with you, really annoying. He doesn't walk. He hops along the ground, and so it makes it kind of erratic when you're walking around. But he can jump really high. So there's some places in the game where a bonus level or an item is up high. Obviously, you'll need Winky to get up that. And then you have Espresso, which I'm not sure why it's an X instead of S, espresso. He's an ostrich. Then also, I'm not sure why he's called Espresso, but I guess he runs very fast. He has little shoes, like sneakers. Kind of reminds me of Sonic. Sonic sneakers there. So he can run really fast, and then he can also jump and kind of like, he'll flap his wings a little bit. He can't fly, but he'll go down very slow. So yeah, you can kind of take advantage of that if you have to make a long jump, which I don't remember. Again, I don't remember seeing him in more than a couple levels, but I don't think any of them were required. I think none of these are required to get through the level. Maybe to get to a bonus level or to get to an extra item, but none of them are required to finish that level, which is good, of course, in my opinion. Then the last one is Squawks, and that is a parrot. It's only in one level, and all he does is hold a light for you. So this is something that was... I would think something with the Super Nintendo, the different modes and layers of the graphics, I think is really cool, because what they do is they actually have the level completely dark. It's not black. You can still just see, but it's very, very hard. And then what they have is the direction you're facing. Squawks is facing that direction. And then he has a light, and it's kind of a cone of light in front of you, so you can see most of the screen. But then what happens is if you look the other way, Squawks will turn, but he'll turn kind of in the direction of your camera. And so he'll turn and the light will flash in your eyes just for a split second and then back and forth flash in your eyes. I always thought that was a really cool idea because, again, it gives you that illusion of depth, that you are in this 3D world, but you just happen to be looking at it from that one plane of dimension. So when it does that, it goes flash, flash, flash. And I think it's really cool. Again, only in one level. There's other levels that utilize light in a similar way, but not exactly where, Squawk's holding it kind of thing. So, yeah, that one I thought was really neat. So that does it for our good guys. As I said, there are bad guys, which are just your general enemies and such. I'm not going to get into that. There's way too many to get into. But we will go into the worlds. And with the worlds, we're going to also talk a little bit about the bosses of each world. So the first world that you're in is Congo Jungle. It's pretty straightforward. It's a jungle area. I wouldn't say it's my favorite world, but it's probably my second favorite, to be honest with you. I just like it. It's because I like a lot of the beginnings of games, because it's when maybe a story starts, or it's when you're just getting into it, you're figuring things out and you're learning things, and you do it a lot, right? You play the beginning of the game more than any other game, I'm sure, or more than any other part of a game. So again, I like the jungle aesthetic. As I said earlier, the way the graphics are and the way the worlds are drawn, absolutely stunning. And that one is definitely one of those wow, I can't believe this is on this console kind of thing. Especially looking back now, back then, of course, the graphics were amazing. But now you kind of look like, wow, I can't believe they got it out of that thing, because it just looked that good. So the boss of Congo Jungle is very naughty, and naughty is spelled Gnawty. And, I was going to say I don't know why, because I was thinking gnat. The reason it's naughty is it's gnawing, because very naughty it's a beaver. So he has two big teeth, so he's gnawing on things. There we go. Look at that. I figured it out. Honestly, an incredibly easy boss. He just hops around the stage, and you jump on him 3 times, and he's done. It is super easy. So as well as I don't know if all of them, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of the bosses, when you go in, first thing you do is you hit a DK barrel, or you have a DK barrel there. And that's great, because if you go in just with Donkey or Diddy, now you have your extra hit kind of thing. And you can choose which character you want to play with. So, all right, our next level is Monkey Mines. I'm just trying to think. Oh, yeah, Mines. Oh, Minecraft. This is actually probably one of my minecart levels. The Monkey Mines, yeah, as it says, it's in a mining area. So there's all sorts of levels. There's probably the best and probably the most known kind of levels in the Donkey Kong Country series, the minecart level. So that one's super cool. You come in and you jump in a little minecart. Why am I saying Minecraft? I haven't played that in years. Some minecart. And you jump in, and it's kind of like an auto scroller. It goes along. You can jump with the carts, the cart jumps, and you go along. And they're quick, they're zooming, and you have to avoid things that come out of nowhere. And they're cool. They're a fairly high skill level, but they're all very on the nose of when things are happening. But they're just fun. And the music in there is cool too. So the Monkey Mines has those levels. Master Necky is the boss of this one. Now, we know why he's called Necky. It's because he's a giant bird, but you only see from his neck up. So he'll appear from one side of the screen, you jump on his little head, he goes away, and then he'll appear from one of the other sections. So you can kind of do almost 4 corners of the screen. He'll sneak on in, you'll jump. If you don't hit him quick enough, he'll spit out acorns at you. And so if it hits you, of course, you take a hit sort of thing. But again, not too challenging. Next world is Vine Valley. So this one's cool in that it is kind of a jungle area again, but it's more of a what's funny? I just thought of this. On Star Wars Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks, that kind of jungle where there's tree houses and that kind of thing, and ropes and all that stuff. That's this one. And that, again, Vine Valley, a lot of the levels, there's ropes that swing from above, and they just go back and forth at a regular pace, kind of like a pendulum. And you just jump on it, Donkey Diddy grab onto it, you jump off onto either the next one or onto a platform or whatever it may be. So that's what a lot of those levels are. Some good music in those levels too. Again, we'll get into that music later. The boss on that one is Queen Bee. I'm sure you can figure that out. The B is just the letter B, not the word B, but she is a big bee. Fairly straightforward. You have a barrel, you hit her with a barrel, she gets mad, jumps up and down, jumps up and down. She can't be hit during this time. You avoid it, rinse, repeat, 3 times again, and she's all done. Now, the next world is Gorilla Glacier. This is where I get frustrated. These levels, it's ironic because they're very good, but they're terrible. I say they're very good but terrible. They are very good levels, but they're very challenging. So the reason that they can get challenging, it's when they get snowy. So as you can tell, Gorilla Glacier, some of the levels are just on top of like a mountain kind of thing. So it's snowy ground. Yes, it's an icy movement area. That's not the hard part of these. Is that in the game, I didn't mention this earlier, I just realized it, in the game there's barrels that you can jump into. So you can jump into it and then you can press a button and it shoots them out. Some of them are like that. Some of them are automatic ones. It goes bang, bang, bang kind of thing as it jumps into a few. Other ones, there's a timer on them. Other ones, they rotate and you have to hit it at the right time. It's a pretty big mechanic, actually. I should have mentioned it. So there's quite a few different barrels that you can use. So there's one level in this one in particular, and the only way I've ever been successful is by standing close to the TV. And the reason is as you get to a specific part in the level, it starts to snow. And the snow is, again, like you remember as I said with Squawks, it gives you that feeling of depth. This does an even better job of that. So let's say that, for an example, I'm just putting my arms out. That at arm's reach, that's where Donkey and Diddy are on their platforms. Of course, there's, stuff in the background. There's artwork in the background, the backdrop of the level, that's something. And then there's stuff in the foreground, a little bit of, some, maybe not an arm's length, but an arm's length minus, 6 inches. So a little bit further in front of them. And then the snow in this level seems to be at maybe 6 inches from my face. It is just in there and it's all over, and it's like, it seems like static. It's really hard to see. So I walk up to try and just focus through it onto your Donkey and Diddy. So there's that aspect of it. It's hard to see through it. But then they throw in a huge amount of barrels to shoot between one versus the other, just the other, a lot going through, and they rotate. And to catch where they rotate and to shoot in the right direction, it just adds an extra layer of difficulty. And it's, as I said, it's probably my most, I don't want to say rage quitting, but yeah, let's call it rage quitting section of the game. It's frustrating to play through, but they're good levels. So it's like, just because I can't do it doesn't mean it's not a good level kind of thing. So yeah, that's that one. There's also like frozen caves. So you'll be inside a cave and it'll be icy. And of course there's different enemies in there and all that fun stuff. So those ones are pretty cool too. Those ones are really pretty levels, very pretty levels. The boss of that world is really naughty. So this is kind of where, kind of lame in my opinion of the game. The bosses do a bit of a sprite swap and a rinse repeat. Now, really naughty, which is in this one versus very naughty in the first world. Yes, they're technically different patterns, but barely. They're not really that different. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the reskin of bosses, but here we are. Next world we have is Creme Croc Industries Inc. This one is a really cool one because there's some of my favorite levels in this one, in the industrial levels kind of thing. There's some where you're on a platform that kind of has fuel, and there's like I think it's like 5 or 6 lights. I think it's 6, so there's 5 green and then 1 red. And what happens is as you're on the platform, it moves, it floats along, and the fuel goes down, and you have to jump and collect fuel, and it fills it back up. But if you miss one of the fuels, well, you're probably going to run out, and then the platform just disappears, and you, of course, die. There's no ground on this level, except for, I think, the very beginning and very end. But, yeah, it's definitely tricky, but also a really, really fun challenge. And I think there's other ones. I'm just trying to figure out how to describe them. It's kind of a you're going along, and there's big oil drums and oil containers. It feels like you're inside a factory kind of thing. Those ones, I don't know. They just I like the level design of them. Not just how it looks, but just how it works kind of thing. So this one is actually, again, not a difficult boss, but a cool boss. It's Dumb Drum. And what it is a giant oil drum that comes and tries to squish you. And as it's trying to do that, I think, you know what, from my memory, I don't even recall that you have to actually hit the boss. What he does is he comes down and just slams on the ground a few times and you avoid him, and then he kind of goes back up and he turns around like a salt shaker and he shakes out enemies. A couple snakes, a couple kremlings, things like that. And I think you just have to defeat all the enemies. I actually can't remember. It's been a while. So, so obviously finish off that guy. We're almost done. We're on the kind of second to last world. So this is Chimp Caverns. That one is pretty straightforward on what it's going to be. Caves and stuff. I'm actually trying to remember of a level in there, but I am drawing a blank on that one. But obviously it wasn't that memorable of an area. Even though this is the last world technically, it does not. I don't think it's that challenging. It's pretty straightforward. Boss on this one is Master Neki Senior. Again, almost identical to Master Neki, it's just a different color. So yeah, that's that. Jump on his head and you're done with it. Now, technically, the last world is Gangplank Galleon. However, there's only one level in Gangplank Galleon, and it's the final level. So you're finally through everything. Oh, just one more thing. Every time you beat a boss, you beat it, and then in the background there's always bananas, but a giant banana comes down. And as Donkey Kong gets real happy and excited, saying, hey, one of my big bananas is back, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the whole thing, is that, yes, King K. Rool steals his hoard, but he also kind of distributes it to his, generals in his little Kremlin army or something like that. Not 100% sure, but I guess, hey, don't keep your eggs in one basket. But, it doesn't matter when you got Donkey and Diddy on the case, right? So, yeah, Gangplank Galleon, King K. Rool, final boss. Really cool boss fight. I think it's 3 phases. 3 phases, I think. And really, it's a good one. Again, like everything else in the game, heavily pattern-based and just fun, though. And the music is absolutely fantastic. I know that's my favorite word, absolutely, but it really is. It's a really cool build-up to it. And it is one of the ones that I have that we'll talk about later, so we'll get into that in a little bit. As I said earlier, the best levels that I liked are the minecart levels, the industrial levels, the worst levels, but still great. Those snowy levels with the barrels and the blizzard, and woof, man, they are tough. Anyway, I don't want to talk about those ones anymore. Yeah, I'm done with those ones. And we're going to now talk about the music. We'll preface this with the fact, not my opinion, maybe my opinion, is probably one of the best soundtracks on the Super Nintendo, if not in general, for video games. It's absolutely amazing, to be honest with you. Composer is David Wise. He did, I believe, Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3, and I think he's done the more recent ones as well. Was it Tropical Freeze and Returns and whatnot? But either way, yeah, he just hits it out of the park with so many tracks on this soundtrack. And as I said, as always, we're going to go over a couple of the favorites. So the first one I have on my list is Fear Factory. It's really, especially with the level that it's in, it's a great time kind of to just enjoy it and get into it. And it's, industrial and really matches the level. It's almost like he built it for the level specifically, which I'm sure he did in some way. On our next choice is Aquatic Ambience. This one is probably one of the most favorite of this game that I've seen across the internet. Really, really peaceful. The water level, obviously aquatic, just underwater and just very, relaxing and just nice. It's a great song to do work to study to, something like that. So we have Life in the Mines next. This one is a really slow, just relaxing, calm song, similar to Aquatic Ambience in that sense. And the song itself is pretty good, but it's really tied into one of my favorite levels, which is where it's those platforms that run out of the fuel that I mentioned. It just is like a nice, relaxing background sound kind of thing. So as I said, not the best song, but the way it's tied into the levels works super well, which obviously I can't convey on the podcast, but trust me, if you play it and you get to these levels, you'll kind of pick up on what I'm saying, ideally. Finally, we're going to have Gangplank Galleon. Now, I did mention this earlier, Gangplank Galleon is pretty much the boss music, and it is really, really cool. It has a great intro, and then it gets into it with like a gritty, like kind of like, you know, upbeat EDM rock kind of thing. Like, it just goes on and on and on, and it's like, it's a really good boss theme as well, because it starts off fun, but it really gets the energy going, especially for that boss fight. It's not the easiest boss fight. It's you know, as I said, several phases, and there's a lot of stuff to it. So yeah, those 4 songs, absolutely fantastic. And then the OC remix that I did a little looking for and found is based off Fear Factory. It's called Factory of Fear. So yeah, this one here is like super punchy, high energy, like really just like aggressively good kind of thing. So yeah, those are the song picks that I've chosen for this. As I said, like, David Wise is an absolute amazing artist and composer, and the songs just really bring out the game. And I think it probably took the game from, you know, let's say whatever score it may be, and it just made it 20% better kind of thing, just based on the music alone. So yeah, really, really great music. And again, one of those ones, it's probably one of the most remixed set of songs I don't see remix again. So yeah, really great set of tracks. Alrighty, so time commitment. So it has been a while since I played. I realized I can't actually remember. Maybe I think I picked it up on the Switch. It is on Switch, the Nintendo Switch Online. I think I picked it up on Switch not that long ago, actually. And it was... I mean, I was just putzing around. It was one of those times where I'm like, I don't know what game to play, so I got a couple levels in there and changed it up. And it's nothing against this game per se, but it's just, yeah, it's been a while since I actually played through it. I would say it's probably 2.5, maybe 3 hours for me to get through it. I mean, I've played through it quite a few times. So I know, I mean, I don't think I've ever, you know, completely done that completionist kind of run of it, but I've definitely gotten through a good chunk of it, you know. The game is actually measured in a percentage, and weirdly enough, to get 100%, it's actually 101%. And you know what? I looked around on the internet, and I could not figure out why it's 101%. Maybe there's 101 rooms, because that's what the percentage, or sorry, the sort of 101% is, that you need to hit all the stages and then all the bonus rooms. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's 101, you know, stages plus bonus rooms, whatever it may be. It just equals that. I don't know, though. As I said, I looked around. I couldn't seem to figure it out. I found a lot of guides on how to figure it out or how to do it, but not necessarily the kind of story behind it. The replayability is it's okay, because again, it's just it's like Super Mario World. Replayability is like, you know, if you want to improve your time or improve whatever it may be. And there is a timer on the save file as well. So that is the thing about it, is that you don't even need a classic, you know, or not a classic, I guess, other way around, a new fancy, you know, stopwatch with your live splits and all that stuff that a lot of the speedrunners use to, you know, track your time. You can just do it on the menu. If it's whatever, then you try again and hopefully you get quicker, right? Improve on your time kind of thing. So with that, how long to beat? As always, I'll have the links of these things in the description. So the main story, I guess, from, you know, A to B, from when you first see the bananas missing to when you get the bananas back, looks like about 4 hours. So honestly, not that bad, really. Something that you can pick up and play in an afternoon while baby's napping, or, you know, over the weekend kind of thing. It's really not a huge amount of commitment. Then on the completionist at 101%, we're looking at about 6 hours. So again, not too much more actually to get that 101%. And I'm sure the first time you go to do it, if you don't use a guide, it's going to be probably closer to 10, because you're like, where is that last room? I can't find it, kind of thing. So yeah, again, not too crazy to pick it up and kind of go along with it. The speed run. So this was crazy. So I went into this and I'm taking a look. I'm like, oh, there's, you know, 6, 7 categories. That's pretty obvious. And then I see there's an arrow, and it actually is there's 15 categories. And then there also is modern and legacy rules. Like, it is pretty wild how many things there are. We're clearly not going to go through all those, otherwise this whole podcast would be just about the speedruns. So the ones that I did kind of take a quick look at, there's any percent, all stages, and 101%. Any percent is pretty obvious. Get through the game as quick as possible with any percentage. The all stages is hitting all the main stages of the game. And then 101% again is the bonuses. So this part's actually really easy. It's the same person. Lovebird920 has the world record #1 for all of them. Any percent is 7 minutes 28 seconds, which is insane because, as we just said, the main story, I guess that's all stages. All stages is 30 minutes 49 seconds, which is still crazy. And then the 101% is 44 minutes 48 seconds. But yeah, I always find it pretty cool that people who do the speedruns, the 100%, 101% that most people do, about 6 hours on average. Lovebird920 has done it in 44 minutes, 48 seconds. So, yeah, pretty crazy. Definitely take a look at those because, just whenever there's a 2D platformer and a speedrun on it, the amount of skill and reflexes, I seem to be able to track it much easier and not necessarily replicate it, but kind of understand what's going on. Something like a third-person game, like a shooter, oh man, when you see like Doom or Quake speedruns, it's almost nauseating how fast it is. But again, 2D ones I just like more. Excuse me. So the one last thing I want to touch on just in this right now is something called SGDQ. If you haven't heard of it, it's Summer Games Done Quick. It's a charity event that happens in the summer, and there's actually another one called Awesome Games Done Quick in the wintertime. So once or twice a year, and they are probably the biggest, I'm almost certain they're the biggest speedrunning community and event around the world, or at least in North America. So they raise some great money, millions of dollars. They do a week-long schedule that actually just dropped the other day. So if you want to check that out, give them a little Google. I think it's gamesdonequick.com. You can hit that up and see that. And they run 24/7. And pre-COVID, they actually ran as an in-person event. So for instance, this one is in person. It's in Minnesota. I don't know. I was looking with a buddy, and we couldn't tell if it was going to be just in person or kind of like a hybrid, because when COVID hit, of course, you couldn't have massive crowds of people around. It wasn't allowed, and so they all did pretty much everything from home. And so what would happen is you'd see one streamer like I am right now. I'm sitting in my room. I'd have my camera on, stream. You'd have other people commentating on it. And then they'd move to the next person in their house. And it's just, there was no audience. And that's what makes it so fun and energetic, is the audience's sort of reaction when they hit $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. It's amazing the energy that the crowd has, especially when you're there at that 3 million. That's when they've been probably going for the whole week. And some of these people have been up for more than 24 hours because they don't want to miss any of the games. So I've always wanted to go. Maybe one day I'll find the availability and of time and funds to be make it down there. But I think it'd be fantastic. But again, I don't know if it's hybrid. But if you haven't heard of it or checked it out, I definitely recommend it. It's happening later on in the summertime. I think either May or June. But yeah, definitely check that out. It's a lot of fun to watch, and there's tons of games. So I guarantee there's at least one game that'll tickle your fancy and get you interested in it. Alrighty, now we're going on to the kiddable section, patent pending. The biggest thing that makes this kiddable, in my opinion, it's the classic 2D side-scroller. Again, you don't have the third dimension to deal with, a single joystick or even two joysticks. A lot of times people have a hard time with that. But yeah, this one here, again, up, down, left, right, classic, simple, easy. It's a challenge, for sure. And I like to use this a lot as well. A lot of these older games that were and still are challenging, especially when you're playing them on modern consoles. So as I said earlier, I was playing this on Nintendo Switch Online. You get the save states built in with Nintendo Switch Online. So, again, you get to a tricky section that's, hard to figure out. You can save before it, so you can just get practice. And then when you finally get past it, you can save after, if you want to. I've given myself the challenge of, I still have a hard time with this game. I can still die and have to go back to my save point. So I've given myself a kind of a in the middle, and again, you do save states however you want, but my kind of method per se, is that if I wanted to use a save state, I would have to beat the level. So I finished the level and I could save state after that. But it's funny with save states in general. I forget about them sometimes, and so I'll save state and then I'll regular save, and then I'll screw something up and then I'll lose an hour in a game. Maybe not this game, maybe more like an RPG. But yeah, so I generally try not to use save states anymore because it kind of screws me up. But if I have a hard part, and especially a game like this, I'm only putting in, let's say, that 3 hours. Even if I lose half an hour, I'm really not that concerned, kind of thing. So as I said, yeah, it's a decent challenge, and it does get much more challenging as time goes on. But again, like as I've said before, if someone wants to play this and get good at it and continue playing it, then they can just keep practicing. Practice makes perfect. So I would say that yes, it may be a challenge, but also you'll be able to pick it up, and it's a simple jump run kind of thing, so you can figure out the controls fairly quick. But yeah, get it on Nintendo Switch Online, just so then you have that quality of life per se. Plus then you can play it handheld. That's great. Playing it off the on the couch while someone else is watching TV is always a fun time, I think. So on a kiddable factor, let's call it, I'd say it's fairly kiddable sort of thing. So yeah, and that leads us to our conclusion. Of course, here is where we're going to get that great rating. I already told you as a spoiler it was going to be great. So I give this game, personally, a 9 out of 10. As I had mentioned with the music, it bumps it up. It's hard to not give it a 10, because I can't really think of too much wrong with it. Maybe it loses points because of the snow levels. I'm just saying, those snow levels are they're just a bit annoying, but it's okay. There's only a few of them. I said I wasn't going to talk about it anymore. We're not going to talk about it. So yeah, a 9 out of 10. It's an amazing game. If you have the opportunity to play it, it's on Nintendo Switch Online. So if you already have that, there you go. And it's not even part of the expansion pack, that more expensive version, which, I mean, let's be honest, Nintendo Switch Online is dirt cheap compared to other services for what you get out of it. You get if you're only looking for the older games, I have no clue about the online experience because, yeah, I don't play it. But nonetheless, yeah, 9 out of 10. I would say objectively, Donkey Kong Country 2 is the better game. But for me, this is the better game. Just, again, it's my first experience of Donkey Kong. First time I played a Donkey Kong Country game, of course, is this. I did play Donkey Kong Country 2. I beat it. I really like that game. The music in that game is fantastic. But this one, I would just inch just a tiny bit higher. Like if I were to do DKC2, which I'm sure I will one day, it would probably be a very, very similar score. It would be very close to this. So stay tuned for that one in the future some point. And that's going to do it for us today. I really appreciate everyone, as always, listening in, wherever you're listening from. I do appreciate it. So thank you very much. We're going to, as per the schedule, be back in 2 weeks. No clue what game I'm going to choose. That's pretty normal. I have no clue until I'm like, oh, I should probably do one of these. Oh, it's the weekend. I should do this. So, yeah, get those. And as is tradition, our dad joke is, if a child refuses to sleep during nap time, are they guilty of resisting arrest? I'll let you decide. Thank you very much again for listening. Give your kids a hug. Give your loved ones a hug. Give your stuffed animals a hug. Hugs are great. Never be short of hugs. Thank you very much, and good night.